Welcome back to the Human Perspective. As I've mentioned before, this week we're doing a series of interviews with people who are doing work internationally, and we're at the National Council on Independent Living's conference. Today we have the privilege of being able to speak with Ms. Fidelia Felisa, who is from Bolivia. Thank you for being with us.
Muchas gracias por estar con nosotros.
Gracias a ti, Judy, y por la entrevista.
Thank you very much, Judy, and thank you for the interview.
You're welcome. So could you give us a little bit more information about yourself? When did you become disabled?
¿Puedes darnos un poco más de información acerca de ti misma? ¿En qué momento te volviste discapacitada?
Okay. Yo soy Felisa, como ya me ha dicho. Desde mis 27 años, por un accidente de flota de bus, me he quedado en silla de ruedas y soy trabajadora social y hace 21 años que trabajo en el tema de discapacidad en Bolivia.
When I was 27, I was in a bus accident, as a result of which I became disabled. I am a social worker, and I have been working for 30 years in the field, helping people with disability in this field.
30 years, you look younger.
Pareces más joven.
So you were a social worker before you became disabled.
Había sido trabajadora social antes de discapacitar.
Sí, he terminado la carrera antes. Trabajé un año cuando no tenía discapacidad como trabajadora social y luego pasó el accidente, pero no tenía el título.
Yes, I had finished my studies. Then I worked for 1 year as a social worker when this accident occurred. But I didn't yet have my degree in hand.
So did you go back to school after you had become disabled?
Entonces, ¿tú volviste a la universidad después de haberte
Sí.
vuelto a discapacitar?
Sí, y he sacado mi tesis, la licenciatura, con el tema de discapacidad.
Yes, I did. And that's when I completed my thesis and I obtained a bachelor's degree. My thesis was related to disability issues.
Did you have difficulty going back to school? Was it difficult for you as a wheelchair user now to go back to university, or were there no problems?
¿Tuvo dificultad para volver a la universidad en ese momento, ya que usted estaba teniendo que usar una silla de ruedas? ¿O no hubo ningún problema cuando volvió a la universidad?
En realidad no volví, solo tenía que hacer la investigación afuera de la universidad.
In fact, I did not return to the university. I had to undertake my research outside of the university.
Pero ya cuando me pasó el accidente, yo no sabía qué estaba pasando, porque la gente me decía que ya no voy a poder hacer nada, que estoy mal, que estoy enferma, entonces yo también sabía. Y 4 años quería morir.
But when the accident occurred, I was a bit confused because I really didn't know where I stood at that time. People were saying that I was sick, that I would not be able to do anything. And so there were 4 years that went by where I was feeling very depressed and I really wanted to die at that point.
So what made you change?
¿Qué hizo que usted cambiara?
Muchas cosas, pero más la pobreza, porque por querer volver a caminar he vuelto pobre a toda mi familia.
Well, many things, but above all, poverty, because in my desire to want to walk again, I impoverished my whole family.
No había 10 centavos para el pan y me daba mucha pena que mi familia esté sufriendo por mí.
There was not even 10 cents to buy a loaf of bread, and I was very upset at the fact that my whole family was suffering because of me.
Entonces he buscado trabajo como trabajadora social, pero mis colegas dicen, ¿qué puedes hacer, Felisa? Tal vez hacemos nosotros las visitas domiciliarias y tú transcribes, pero yo no he estudiado para ser transcriptora.
So I wanted to seek out work in my field as a social worker, and my colleagues were saying, what can we find that you would be able to do? You can no longer undertake the home visits. Perhaps you can transcribe the information that we collect on those visits. But I haven't studied transcription, so I was not able to do that.
So you decided that you wanted to go back and become a social worker.
Tú decidiste que querías volver a tu profesión y trabajar como trabajadora social.
Sí,
asistente
sí,
social.
era mi única opción para poder ganar un poco de plata.
Yes, that was my only option in order to earn some money.
So how did you get involved in being engaged with other disabled people? You went from being a non-disabled person to becoming disabled to still being outside of the disability community. How did you get to become engaged with other disabled people?
Entonces, ¿cómo fue que usted se involucró con otra gente con discapacidad? Usted pasó de ser una persona sin discapacidad, hasta a ser una persona discapacitada, sin conexión con la comunidad de personas discapacitadas. ¿Cómo fue que usted se conectó con esa comunidad?
Como no encontraba trabajo, entonces he dicho yo me voy a hacer mi propio trabajo. Quería crear un centro de rehabilitación donde yo me pueda internar y también a otros compañeros.
Well, because I didn't find any work, I decided I would create my own work. And so I decided to create a rehabilitation center where I could work and be, and I could include other colleagues of mine in that center.
Y ahí pensaba voy a trabajar yo y vamos a estar juntos y
I
me
thought
va a
we
estar.
could-
Mi familia no sufre.
I thought that I could work there, we would all be together, and my family would no longer be suffering.
Ahí he visto pero mucha necesidad de los compañeros. Yo encontraba a alguien en silla de ruedas y le invitaba a la reunión, no tenía computadora, escribía a mano mis cartas, hacía todo lo posible para juntar a la gente.
So that's when I discovered a lot of need amongst people in that community. They would come to meetings, there was no computer, we would have to write up all the notes by hand. So that's when I discovered all these needs.
So where are we today? Is there now an organization that you've created? And tell us a little bit about that.
Entonces, ¿dónde nos encontramos hoy día? ¿Hay una organización que usted ha creado? Si es así, cuéntenos un poco al respecto.
Sí, es la Asociación Nueva Esperanza. En 99 hemos creado y estábamos haciendo proyectos de inclusión laboral. Pero en 2011 he viajado a Japón al taller de vida independiente y ahí ha cambiado toda mi forma de ver la discapacidad.
So yes, I created the association called Nueva Esperanza, New Hope, and we were undertaking projects of work integration to try to get people into the working community, yes. But in 2011, I had the good fortune of being able to participate in a workshop, independent living workshop in Japan, and that's when my whole approach changed.
So you went to Japan.
Usted fue a Japón?
Sí, en 2011 y realmente conocí una familia muy linda.
Yes, in 2011, and in fact I there found a wonderful family.
Y es la primera vez que no he sentido mi discapacidad.
And that is the first time that I have not felt my disability.
So you felt like you were able to be more a part of the community.
Entonces usted sintió que podía ser una parte más integral de la comunidad.
Así es.
Yes.
And so you went back to Bolivia.
Usted volvió a Bolivia.
Are you getting support from the Japanese for the organization you're setting up in Bolivia?
Usted está obteniendo apoyo de los japoneses para la organización que usted está armando en Bolivia.
Sí, desde el 2011. En 2012 hemos hecho un primer taller nacional de vida independiente.
Yes, since 2011. In 2012 we organized the first workshop on independent living.
Sí. La filosofía de vida independiente para mí es la única metodología que nos va a permitir la inclusión social. Y yo quiero que funcione en mi país.
The independent living philosophy is, in my point of view, the only approach that will allow us to become fully integrated into the community, and that is what I would like to have in my country.
So when you're working and talking with other disabled people, are they becoming inspired by what the organization is going to be able to do?
Sí, ya tenemos otras asociaciones, otros centros de vida independiente que están empezando, uno en Potosí, otro en Tarija, en La Paz y en El Alto.
Yes, we already have other groups that are starting up, associations of independent living, one in Potosí, one in Tarija, one in La Paz, and one in El Alto.
What are you trying to get the government to do to help support your ability to become more integrated in the community?
¿Qué es lo que usted está tratando de lograr que haga el gobierno para ayudar a que su comunidad se integre más a la comunidad en general?
Bueno, ahora en 2016 hemos hecho una gran marcha nacional, hemos hecho una caravana, hemos venido de Cochabamba a La Paz en silla de ruedas, pidiendo al gobierno una renta mensual de 500 bolivianos, que es $78 al mes.
Well, in 2016 we organized a march from Cochabamba all the way to La Paz on wheelchairs, where we asked the government to provide us with a monthly stipend of 500 bolivianos, which is equivalent to $78 a month.
And what happened?
¿Y qué es lo que ocurrió?
Bueno, el gobierno no nos ha tratado muy bien,
Well, the government did not treat us that well.
no nos han dado ese momento, pero ahora el gobierno ha presentado un proyecto de ley para darnos 250 bolivianos al mes. Todavía no está aprobado, esperamos que se apruebe, pero queremos que este beneficio sea directo a las personas con discapacidad.
Well, at that point, the government did not treat us very well, but now there is a bill that is being considered which would give 250 bolivianos a month to people with disabilities, but we would like that to be given to us directly, not for other projects or other purposes, but to us directly.
So you want to follow the model that many countries are using so that it can be self-directed.
Usted quisiera seguir los modelos que otros países están usando para que este dinero ustedes mismos decidan cómo usarlo. Dirijan ustedes el propósito de ese dinero.
Eso es lo que queremos. Queremos decidir por nuestras vidas, queremos tener el control de lo que vamos a hacer. Entonces queremos promover vida independiente y este sería el primer paso para empezar con vida independiente.
Yes, we would like to decide by ourselves what to do with that resource, and we would like to promote independent living, and this would be the first step towards achieving that.
Well, what do you hope to accomplish in the next 1 to 2 years?
¿Qué es lo que piensas lograr en el próximo año o 2 años?
Hacer despertar a mis compañeros, empoderarlos, darles más conocimiento sobre lo que es derechos civiles, cómo es la filosofía de vida independiente, consejería, con más fuerza, formar más líderes. Y después de uno vamos a levantarnos y vamos a temblar al gobierno.
So I would like my community to wake up, to become empowered, to provide them with more knowledge regarding their civil rights, independent living, peer counseling, to develop very strong leaders, and we will, in short order, make our government tremble.
Fidelia, thank you very much for being with us today. And we will follow the work that you're doing so we can keep our listeners involved, and we'll post a link so that people can look at the work that you're doing. Muchas gracias.
Gracias a ti y gracias por la entrevista. Quisiera decirle a todos los que nos están viendo que vean, que den su mirada hacia Bolivia y que vean que el trabajo que estamos haciendo nosotros en allá
So
y nos apoyen.
thank you very much. Thank you for the interview, and I would like everyone to look towards Bolivia, to see the work that we're doing there, and to support it.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Gracias.